Welcome to Little Bracket of Horrors, the pod that puts the fight in fright.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm Derek.
I'm Shelly.
And we are Little Bracket of Horrors. And today we are getting to our 2024 Deathmatch bracket.
Woo! We did it.
We did it. We finally made it. It was a long run, but we got to the finish line. So congratulations to us, right?
I mean, we deserve it.
We do. It was a long haul, but I'm glad we're here. I'm glad we are ready to kick it off. We got a lot of fan submissions this year. And we definitely needed it. With Matt not being here, we needed a tiebreaker.
We do, because then it would have just been me and you fighting for a solid hour.
I will not budge on this. But
you have to change your vote.
Exactly. Yeah, just like I said, we threw out our brackets to everyone out there, and we got 7 submissions. So I want to thank everyone who submitted something to us, and they're going to help us decide who wins this season. But before that, anything scary happen? You're watching anything scary?
No, not lately. Been busy with rehearsals. I am rewatching season 1 of Yellow Jackets just because I think season 3 is out now, and I just excuse me. The second season didn't bring me in like the first season did, so like I didn't finish it, and I just like let it die in my head. So rewatching to kind of just rewatching it. There's no fancy word I want to use now. I can't figure it out.
You're going back through the Yellow Jacket stuff, so that's cool.
Which I guess is like horror TV, but
yeah, it's got some big names in it. Looks pretty interesting.
Yeah,
interesting.
Have you not seen it?
I have not.
That's really good.
Yeah,
it's just season 2 wasn't as good as season 1, so I lost interest.
And there is a season 3.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's hard because it's one of those type of shows where like they have current time actors and past time actors, so like playing the same character, so you're trying to connect and they don't blatantly or like they're not blatantly like this is this person and this is that person. They don't hand it to you on a platter. You kind of have to you get names so like you can figure it out that way, but if you're not paying attention, then you're like, who's that? What?
Yeah,
who are they connected to? But they did do a really good job of making the younger actors playing the younger high schoolers look familiar or similar to the older actors. The casting's very well done.
Good.
So
yeah, nice.
That's me. That's the nutshell.
Nice. Yeah. I watched a movie on Shudder called Daddy's Head.
Okay.
It came highly recommended from my buddy at work, Steven, and he was raving about it, and I watched it, and it was kind of a dump. I was like,
how dare you, buddy at work?
Yes. I was like, I don't understand why you were so excited about this movie. It was a trippy movie. It wasn't really scary. The ending kind of left you asking, what was this for? What was this all about?
Why?
Yeah, a big question of why. Why did this happen? So, a couple like creepy creature design stuff, but other than that, there wasn't much substance to it for me. So that's the only thing I watched. I'm just decompressing from watching so many movies last year and just being lazy, and I'm getting into playing computer video games. So that's what I've been doing.
Nerd.
Yeah, I'm playing this game called Valheim, and you're a little Viking, and you got to go out to the wilderness and build a fort and fight these Mothman-looking creatures, and you have to like forge for bronze and tin and all this stuff. It's very involved. I spent like 4 hours the other night just chopping down trees and collecting wood.
Sounds awesome.
Yeah. It's very what's the word I'm looking for? Not therapeutic, but oh my gosh, I can't find the word. It's completely escaping me. But anyways, it's relaxing. It's relaxing to go out and cut trees.
And forge for
bronze.
Wow.
Yep, it's fun. So I've been doing that.
There is a term for the people call those like cottagecore type games.
I had to fight this one boss, and I'm playing it with my friends, and I had to fight
you
this
have
one
friends
boss.
too.
I do have friends. It was like a huge deer with like antlers for miles that was just charging at us, and we had to parry it away and strike it when it was vulnerable. So.
Probably not cottagecore if you're fighting things.
Yeah, I know. That's what I was like. It's not just
Cottagecore is
relaxing.
literally just walking around.
99% of it's super chill, but yeah. We did have a siege. We're going way deep into this. We did have a siege, and all the Mothman creatures were attacking our camp.
Yeah,
and
that's
that was
definitely
very
not
stressful.
cottagecore.
That was stressful. All right, so yeah, that's the scariness that's been my life lately.
There is the Mothman creatures.
Yeah, they're
Are
called.
you sure they're Mothman?
To me, I'm calling them Mothman because they kind of have that face a little bit and wings, but they're called greenlings.
Okay. Yeah,
And-
because Mothman are out of the north.
No, that's just what I'm calling them because that's what I equated to. So that's on me. That's no one else. That's me.
Okay.
All right, you ready to get into our bracket?
I'm ready.
All right. Let's do the first matchup, which is getting my paperwork out.
Yeah, I just want you all to know I have no notes. No notes.
I just have my guide sheet.
Yeah, but you literally filled out a guide sheet.
I did.
I have no criteria.
Okay,
Not
so
like
that's
you.
Yes.
I just, whatever movie I like better. Like, would I watch it again?
Yeah,
I hated that movie. I'm not going to watch it again.
exactly. For mine, which movies I decided, I tried to be objective as I could on this stuff, especially when you're watching art and this is the art that speaks to you. So my first criteria was which one had better writing / story to it. That'll get you an X to move on. The next one was which one's scarier because, in the horror genre, we have like slow burns, we have like comedic movies, all that stuff. So for me, I think a horror movie is based in scare. So those are my two. And then if it's tied there, then I go to which one am I going to watch first? Which one am I going to watch next? So that's how I've decided which movies move on in the bracket for me. So
Yeah.
let's jump into the first match, which is The Witch versus Sleepaway Camp. What do you have on this, Shelley?
Well, I think everybody knows how I feel
Yeah.
about Robert Eggers, especially Roger. I do not like The Witch.
Yes.
I do not like The Witch.
Yeah, it's a slow
I
burn.
just don't like Robert Eggers. Sleepaway Camp is one of, when I look back on horror movies that I first watched, when I got into horror movies and really started digging into the genre, Sleepaway Camp is one of those movies that you just never forget.
Yeah.
And then you go around recommending it to any horror fan who has never seen it, because the shock value of the Sleepaway Camp ending is one you'll never forget.
One of the greatest. Yeah.
So it's 80s quirkiness. It's got those weird things, but I still think it's got good overall scare. It's got good scenes, practical horror, like makeup.
Yeah.
And then one of the greatest endings in horror history, in my honest opinion. So
Yeah.
I went Sleepaway Camp.
I like it. For me, writing story, I loved the attempt at the authenticity that Eggers did, but overall story, I think Eggers was a little bit more simple. Just a witch story. A family they outcast
Or
themselves
lack
to the woods.
thereof, a story we really don't know why.
So there's a lot of background with Sleepaway Camp. I think just like you said, that ending, I mean, one of the greatest shock endings in horror history. So I like the story better of Sleepaway Camp. As far as scarier, I think the tone and the visuals of The Witch are more scarier than Sleepaway Camp. Sleepaway Camp's got that shocking moment and a lot of cool kills. But which one am I going to watch first? It's going to be Sleepaway Camp. So for Shelley and I, we're both saying Sleepaway Camp moves forward on the
Yes.
first one.
Yes.
Let's go to the fans.
All right, I'll pick up
So-
this first one here.
So the first one is Tim from Horror Flicks and Guitar Picks, and he says
The Witch.
The Witch. So The Witch has got one. Next we have Sherry F, and she says Sleepaway Camp.
There we go.
Sleepaway.
Brian M is next, and he's got Sleepaway Camp winning it.
Nice. Next is Matt F, and he's got Sleepaway Camp. I think at this point we're pretty
We're
safe.
good, yeah.
And then next is
Quinlan has Sleepaway Camp.
All right. And then after that we have Carrie W, and she's also has Sleepaway Camp.
And
then
lastly, Ray M
Ray
with
M.
another vote for The Witch.
The Witch. All right. So The Witch, two votes. So, great movie. I love The Witch, but I'm sorry. Sleepaway Camp is.
I mean, when you put it, and it's
ahead.
funny, for some of our matches, it's so easy. This one wasn't an easier decision, even as much as I dislike The Witch. But you can't ask for two different
Oh yeah.
movies to go up against each other. Like, what a starking
Yeah,
difference.
exactly. Yeah,
So.
which I think is great because horror spans that. It's the campy fun and the serious and like.
Which, as you
dark.
know, our first two winners were Shaun of the Dead,
and
Cabin in the Woods. Both horror
Comedies.
horrors,
Yeah.
horror comedies, respectfully. I don't think we're gonna have that this year, but
Yeah,
if I
we
can
don't-
predict,
Yeah.
But what do you crave?
Yeah. What a great first matchup we had.
Yeah.
So next up is Saint Maud versus Triangle. What do you got for Saint Maud versus Triangle?
So this is funny because I waited a long time to watch The Triangle, and no spoilers on it or anything, and then we finally got it. And I watched it, and I was slightly let down by some of it.
Yeah.
I wanted more of what I thought would be a killer on a ship. They gave us something very interesting.
They did.
And you do have to watch it a couple times.
Yeah, I think
You can't watch that movie once.
Yes.
But then we got Saint Maud,
Mm-hmm.
which I had no desire to watch. Not like The Triangle. But what a movie.
Yeah.
And it just had such compelling topics, great acting, great effects. I thought the ending was great.
So good. One of the great modern endings.
Yeah,
to a
I
horror
mean,
film. Yeah.
and I didn't feel incomplete from the ending because she bursted into flames. I think she finally achieved what she wanted to achieve too. But I, surprisingly enough, did give it to Saint Maud.
Oh, okay, cool, nice.
Yeah, I mean, when I put it up against Triangle, Triangle let me down, I think, so hard. It was hard for me to...
Yeah.
I don't know if I would have moved it on either way. It just... Not that Triangle's bad, I just... I expected more. It's not you, it's me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I went Saint Maud.
For me, it was a struggle, too, because I really liked the idea that Triangle came with.
Yes.
This time loop where, this lady is fighting herself, essentially. And also what it said about, like, past bad decisions and, like, trying to fix those. So I thought that was really cool, but it kind of was a little bit too loose with it. There were a lot of holes in it. So the writing eventually went to... It was back and forth with me because I did like that idea, but I don't think the execution was as tight as I would have liked it. I did end up going to Saint Maud because I think it's, as far as one of the recent films I've watched in like character piece style, I think it painted such a picture of this lady going into like religious psychosis, and I just really enjoyed it. Scarier, I also went Saint Maud, and then it cleaned across the board. Saint Maud. Triangle, I liked it. It was a little bit too loose.
Yeah.
And that stuff. So
I'm shocked that me and you have not...
thus far, no arguments yet. Yeah.
I jinxed it, but...
Jinxed it. All right, so now it's time to go to our fans.
fans.
So first up is who?
Ray M
Yes.
has Saint Maud.
Okay, Saint Maud from Ray M.
Carrie W has Triangle.
Triangle.
I don't know if she watched Saint Maud.
I don't think she watched Saint Maud. Fine. I tried
I'm
to.
just saying.
Yeah.
Because I know what kind of movies she'll watch and not watch.
Exactly.
And I don't think she watched Saint Maud.
No, she didn't watch it.
Quinlan D clearly had
Yes.
Saint Maud.
Yeah. And thank you, Quinlan, for
The
joining
recommendation.
us.
Yeah. Well,
he
actually,
joined us.
he joined us. You put it on the wheel.
Yes.
I said, I have a friend who loves that movie.
Yeah.
And we got Quinlan on.
Yeah,
so.
thanks, Quinlan.
Matt F has Saint Maud.
Great.
Brian M actually had Triangle. Sherry F had Saint Maud. And then Tim had Saint Maud.
Saint Maud? Oh,
Almost a clean sweep from Saint Maud.
exactly. So good job, Saint Maud.
Moving on.
You are moving on. So we're going back to the top. On the left-hand side, and we have Dash Cam versus Sleepaway Camp. Take it away. Take it away. Yeah. This might be a quick one.
Everyone knows my feelings on Dash Cam.
Yes.
Ray recorded Dash Cam with us.
Yep, Ray. And he
I'm so
submitted
sorry.
it too.
I'm so sorry, Ray. I don't know if I actually was there recording it though.
No,
Who
it was
recorded it
Roger.
with you? Roger.
Our friend.
Okay, I was like,
Yep.
I don't think I actually spoke on the microphone.
Yeah, I got your notes though.
However,
yes.
that movie sucked. I'm so sorry, Ray.
Yeah.
It was so bad. And I don't know if it's the climate that we're in right now. I could not take the MAGA stuff.
Yeah,
I absolutely could not take any of that. And to just not have her to die in the end, I'm like,
So hopeful for it.
Was it Angela? Who was the crazy
Annie? Yeah. Rough.
Like she was so diabolical and like scary, but you can't kill the one person we want to die.
I know, the one person of this very small cast. Anyways, yes,
kill them.
We don't get the joy that I think a majority of I'm assuming the majority of the people who watch that film want to see happen.
Right.
And you're going against Sleepaway Camp.
Right.
I think
I gave it to Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah, I hear you. So
no arguments needed.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same. I mean, you're putting one of the greatest campy horror films ever against, a modern, and I'm not a huge fan of like found footage or like whatever kind of modern type. Like I know there's like Zoom call, like horror films too. Like it's not really my bag. So you're already missing a point in that. And then, I did say in the episode that, Annie is one of the most irritating characters I've ever had to watch. So I obviously went with Sleepaway Camp, but somehow that film is a big hit on this podcast.
I know.
We almost have 400 listens for that episode.
Guys, we sometimes get
no
in
idea.
a week get 60 listens.
Yeah. So it's crazy that film blew up. I mean, it's a ton of listens in the UK and Belgium for some reason.
But I think it's mostly because it is such a social media based film that people probably are always searching and Googling for information on it.
But
I wonder if they're just listening to the podcast to see, is it a real story?
Is it real? Yeah, it could be.
Do these people know?
Maybe they don't. Thanks for the suggestion, Ray, and for coming on the episode. But yeah, that's just a no for us. So we are both Sleepaway Camp, obviously. Let's go through the list.
Well, unfortunately, some people's brackets are broke.
Oh,
so
okay.
It might get a little weird from here.
Yes, but we'll take what we can.
So Tim had The Witch.
Oh, he had The Witch moving on? All right.
Doesn't count.
Great movie, Tim, but yeah, it's gone.
Sherry F had Sleepaway Camp.
Okay, cool. We got 3.
Brian M had Sleepaway Camp. Matt F had Sleepaway Camp. Quinlan D had Sleepaway Camp.
Clean Sweep, maybe?
Carrie W had Sleepaway Camp. And Ray M had Dash Cam. So sorry, Ray.
You know what, Ray? I'm glad you are championing your movie, and I see your bracket now.
Stay strong.
Yes, you do stay strong for your movie. So good for you, Ray. But unfortunately for you, Sleepaway Camp is moving on.
Also,
yes.
I mean, I would even pick The Witch over Dash Cam.
Oh God. Well, I would.
Sorry, Ray.
I would pick everything
over Dash.
Yeah. I mean, it was fun. It was fun watching the movie. It wasn't fun watching the movie.
No,
it was rough watching the movie, and it was fun to dig in. And then like all the background stuff on this movie is very interesting. And digging into that lady Annie, the real lady, digging into her was very interesting. And having Ray on was a blast. So it was not, I wasn't upset about the whole thing, but the movie itself was a little rough.
Yeah.
So moving on, we go to The Babadook first. 30 Days of Night. This was a really tough one for me.
I don't know if it was as tough for me. I hated that child in The Babadook.
Understood. Yeah.
His acting was just so. I have a big issue with children that act lately.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is. I need to stop watching movies with kids in it. I watched some movies like Mr. Crockett. I didn't hate the kids in that movie.
Oh, Mr. Crockett was really good. I watched it on your recommendation.
Yeah, I don't know
I enjoyed
if we
it.
ever discussed that, but maybe we did. But
I put it when I did the horror films of 2024 with Roger and Lisa. It was my honorable mentions.
Oh, nice.
I did talk about Mr. Crockett.
Nice.
It's a good movie. People
fun
should
movie.
check it out. Yeah, it's on Hulu, I think, right? Yeah, Hulu. But sorry, go ahead with your Babadook.
I just thought it I wanted more. I just want more. If I don't like it, it's because I want more. I wanted more of the scary guy. I wanted more jumps. I wanted more scares. When we finally saw the guy, I was like, it's just a man in a top hat.
With his jazz hands.
And then like the ending, she's like, he now lives in my basement and I'm feeding him daily.
Mm-hmm.
Weird. 30 Days a Night. What a great concept for a vampire movie.
Yeah.
Let's put them in an area where there's no light for a certain amount of time and where they're just going to ravage the city.
Yeah.
And that's what they did. Some great actors, some great acting. Maybe not your favorite ending in the world, but I think like it was a very much like a heroic ending.
Yeah.
But I've got to give it to 30 Days a Night.
Yeah. I really enjoyed the story of the Babadook, with her feeding it at the end. I thought was very symbolic of what grief is, and that you can't run from it or hide from it, and it will tear you apart. So you have to deal with it. I enjoyed that a lot. The 30 Days a Night. So I'm going on the writing right now. 30 Days a Night I thought was an amazing concept for a vampire flick, and I was blown away by the action of it, and it was a fun watch. But ultimately, as far as like writing story, I landed on 30 Days a Night. So
Wow.
I liked just the idea of putting these vampires in a place that is just dark for that extended period of time, which is genius to me. And how they had to operate was really cool. So I like that. And then scarier, I thought the Babadook was scarier. I thought the design of him was really cool. How he essentially came off the pages of the book, I thought was great. I found that more scarier. And then which one am I going to watch first? I went the Babadook.
No.
Yes.
We're not aligning.
We're not aligning. So there's 1 for 1. So 30 Days a Night, 1 for Shelley. Babadook,
Okay.
1 for me. So what do we have from the fans?
Ray M has 30 Days of Night.
Good choice, Ray.
Carrie W got 30 Days a Night.
I feel like I'm going to lose on this one.
Quinlan D has the Babadook. Matt F has the Babadook. I think we're tied up again.
We are tied. Oh, my gosh.
Brian M has 30 Days a Night.
Ooh, pulling away.
Sherry F has 30 Days a Night.
Okay, I think that's...
And Tim has 30 Days a Night.
All right, so 30 Days of Night is moving on. I'm not mad. Both these movies are pretty close in my book as far as like how much I like them. So it was fine margins when I talked about which one I would watch first. So I'm not mad about 30 Days a Night moving on at all. All right. So next up we have Lake Mungo versus Saint Maud.
I think no matter what I had picked between Saint Maud and Triangle, they were going to beat Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
This is another movie I waited a long time to watch, and it was kind of pent up to me. Like, it was really scary and it was really shocking.
Yeah.
I got none of that.
Me too.
It was so boring. It was one of the worst documentary-based horror movies that I had ever seen. I just thought there was too much talking, not enough of the scare. I mean, they have a couple of panning scenes that have are tense, but there was even like the reward at the end of the panning scenes wasn't enough for me to be like, oh my God, that was so scary. So I think anyone that was going up a Lake Mungo for me would have beat Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
So I obviously have Saint Maud.
Okay.
Moving on.
Lake Mungo, it had moments. I do think the cell phone footage with, I forget the girl's name, that died.
Yeah.
But anyways, the cell phone footage, like, that was really cool.
And it's not an actual lake. Did we talk about that?
Yeah, it's a dry lake.
Stupid.
And why that's a thing, I don't know. But so with the writing, I think, Saint Maud already won against Triangle, and Triangle had better writing in my opinion than Lake Mungo. Lake Mungo's, just a documentary style.
Like I said, Triangle would have beat Lake Mungo for me.
Exactly. So I think we're on the same page there. So yeah, for me as well, Saint Maud was moving forward. Let's go to the fans.
Okay. This might be some broken brackets.
Broken brackets, which is fine.
Matt F had Saint Maud. Brian had Triangle. Sherry had Saint Maud. Tim had Saint Maud. Quinlan had Lake Mungo.
Okay, cool.
Which I'm shocked.
Interesting.
Saint Maud.
Interesting.
Carrie had Triangle.
Triangle. Oh, she had Triangle moving on.
And then, because she picked
she
Triangle.
watched it.
Yeah. And then Ray M picked Saint Maud.
Saint Maud. All right. So Saint Maud is moving on from Saint Maud versus Lake Mungo. All right. At the bottom of the left-hand side, we have Children of the Corn versus Alien.
This was a tough pick.
Okay.
For me.
Do tell, yeah.
Well, maybe not, because I do like Children of the Corn as much as I shit on it. Because you kind of have to say it's an 80s movie, so like some of the things are kind of out there because of when it's from.
Yes.
But also two very different movies.
Very different movies. Yeah.
They were both made in the 80s? Or was Alien in the 70s?
Alien was 79, and Children of the Corn, I think, was like 84, I think.
Okay, let's put that into perspective.
Okay.
Alien being a movie made earlier in our timeline, I think was more advanced than what Children of the Corn did.
Children of the Corn's budget got fucked with.
I don't care.
I know, but I'm saying they didn't. I think.
Oh, so I
think
picked them instead? No.
No, but you're comparing the works against each other. The one had like peanuts compared. I think Alien had a good amount.
Yeah, but still.
I'm not
the
arguing for Children
digitization
of the Corn, by the way.
of Linda Hamilton going up
Against Ripley. Yeah.
So stupid. Anyways, I thought Alien was more entertaining, had a better story, had better special effects, was scarier too. I was terrified of the Alien movie when I was a child. When my parents used to take me on the Great Movie Ride when I was little, I would hide during that scene. It was so scary. Children of the Corn, even let's just say I didn't watch horror movies as a kid. So like I knew of Alien as a kid because of like my parents watching it and my sister liking it. But I didn't like have any, I guess, exposure to Children of the Corn at a young age like I did with Alien. So even then I think I think Alien would have still scared me more than Children of the Corn if I was a child. But yeah, I went with Alien.
Nice. So between the two on writing/story, I ended up going with Alien on it just because I loved the egg face huggers, and I loved how the mechanics of them, how they worked, how the alien came to be. I think was genius. You know, it was genius in writing, and then it was genius in how they physically showed it. That whole movie, I was uncomfortable and uneasy the whole film. And anytime you do that, and you can create that, I think the story and the writing are just so powerful.
And I think if you if we were putting the budgets to it, let's take that out of it, because if Children of the Corn was, at a disadvantage because of budget, let's look at what they did with the franchises from there.
Oh my God.
Children of the Corn did shit with their sequels
many movies, but
and
yeah,
prequels.
they
Even like
off.
the newest one is not great.
Yeah.
Whereas we've got things like Alien Romulus coming out, which is still so good.
It is still good, yeah.
So like
what the franchises were able to do,
right.
Alien is dwarfing.
And
Children
now
of the Corn.
maybe they have about the same budgets. Maybe Alien still has more, run, yeah. But like Alien has done more with their franchise than Children of the Corn ever did. So.
Oh, I would 1,000% agree. I was forced to watch the movies in a day. I would be like, give me all the Alien movies.
Yeah.
I even like even the Alien vs. Predator movies, which some people
I
shit
didn't
on.
really watch those, yeah.
They're fun. It's like, oh yeah, why wouldn't I want to see the Xenomorph against Predator?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, this is fun. It's a crazy action movie. So they're still fun. So yeah. Scarier. I mean, I just said, like, I was completely on edge. Because this was the first time I sat and watched it all the way through this year. Yeah. I've only seen like bits and pieces on TV, so this season was the first time that I sat and watched Alien for what it was. And it was amazing. So this was actually, Alien was a clean sweep for me, where writing was good, scarier, and then I was going to watch next. Yeah. So Alien's moving on for me as well.
So we got 2 for Alien.
Yep.
And then we have Ray M with Alien. Carrie W with Children of the Corn.
There you go. She had a good time. She recorded that episode because I messed it up.
Because you fucked mine up.
I fumbled it.
Quinlan D with Alien. Tim with Alien. Sherry with Alien. Brian M with Alien.
Nice.
And Matt F with Children of the Corn.
Oh, 2 for Children of the Corn. I like it. And thank you, Sherry, for submitting that film for us to cover this year. It was a blast, obviously.
Yes.
So next up on the left-hand side at the quarterfinals is Sleepaway Camp and 30 Days of Night. So, Shelly, I'll throw it to you first. Sleepaway Camp, 30 Days of Night.
So I'm going to stick with the classic horror ending of Sleepaway Camp. 2 different movies. We've got a lot of contrast here.
Yes.
But when it comes to overall story, over shockability, I know she hates shockability in Robert Eggers movies, but not in Sleepaway Camp. I know. It's different.
Eggers isn't known for shock though, so I think you're clear on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, he's a slow burn dude. Like it's. Anyways, I'm sorry.
Stupid. That's what he is.
Go ahead.
Anyways, I'm gonna stick with classic 80s horror with Sleepaway Camp.
Nice.
Is my pick.
All right, so my bracket is broken. So Sleepaway Camp versus 30 Days a Night. Writing, that shock ending, the kids' dialogue, them just like being little assholes to one another was such a fun part for me. I enjoyed it. 30 Days a Night, super smart. But I'm sorry. Sleepaway Camp gets it on writing. Scarier. Scarier, I would say 30 Days a Night. I think the vampire design of the Russian vampires or whatever it was pretty spectacular, and they were so brutal. So I love that. So I'll give Scarier to 30 Days a Night, but I mean, Sleepaway Camp is, I would say, it's definitely in my top 10 horror films, and I've watched it 1,000 times. I'll watch it 1,000 times more. So Sleepaway Camp is moving forward for me.
All right. So that's 2 for Sleepaway Camp.
Yep.
Matt F., although had it up against Babadook, he still had Sleepaway Camp moving on.
It counts.
Brian M. had the same matchup as us, and he had Sleepaway Camp moving on. Sherry F. has the same matchup, but did have 30 Days a Night going on.
Okay, 30 Days a Night.
Tim had The Witch versus 30 Days.
Uh-huh.
So he picked The Witch.
The Witch over off to the side.
Quinlan had Sleepaway Camp versus the Babadook, but did pick Sleepaway Camp. Carrie had Sleepaway Camp versus 30 Days a Night and picked 30 Days a Night. And then Ray M had Dash Camp versus 30 Days a Night and picked Dash Cam. Sorry, Ray.
So 1 for Dash Cam, 1 for The Witch, and Sleepaway Camp is moving forward. So
All right.
Bottom of the left-hand side at our quarters is Saint Maud versus Alien.
Yeah.
My bracket's broken.
Yeah. What did you have?
No. Actually, it is right. Never mind.
Yeah, you have Saint Maud and Alien. It was just that top one. You lost the Babadook.
It threw me off.
Yeah.
All right.
You're good.
So you go. Go ahead.
So 2 very different movies again. Saint Maud is more of a religious current horror film, where we've got Alien, which is a classic horror film, one of the first horror films in space. I just think Alien has so much redeeming values with it when it came to its special effects, the story, the acting, the scare value, it just had so much going for it. If I'm going to sit down and put on a movie on in the background, I'm going to put something like Alien on in the background, because Saint Maud is just so like it's deep. I guess like what there's a word for it.
It's immersive.
Yeah, and it's almost like I need to pay attention and watch Saint Maud. It's not a movie I can just throw on for fun.
It's not a light watch.
The rewatchability is not there for Saint Maud. Great film. No rewatchability, in my opinion. So I did pick Alien to move on.
Nice. This was another very tough one for me.
Saint Maud is such a good movie. It's hard to get it out of the bracket.
It is. And like the toughest part for me on these 2 films was writing, because I loved the character of Maud. I loved following her every step she took, and just like the descent into her own mental state was just amazing. But Alien, like I said, like even the crew itself, like I work at a shipyard, so I work with blue collar people, and I know like the relationship dynamics that are in places like that. They nailed it on Alien.
Yeah. Like
I felt like I was sitting in a blue collar ship with all these workers, and they were able to capture that perfectly. I ended up going with Saint Maud on writing just because I loved that character so much.
But was it the writing or the acting that gave it?
No, it was the writing.
Okay. I'm just checking it.
I loved the relationship between Maud and the lady. I forget her name.
That she took care of.
But that whole dynamic was it was very meaty. A lot in those 2 characters.
I was just checking to make sure that it was the writing itself and not the acting, because sometimes the writing can be shit, but if you got a good actor,
exactly, they can make it better.
Yeah.
But I loved the writing. But scarier, I mean, you'll be hard pressed to find a scarier movie than Alien, in my opinion. So it went to that, and then this was tough. But which one am I going to watch first? It's going to be Alien. Like this you
can't just throw Saint Maud on.
I know, and that's what I'm saying. Like, and I'm
without
down,
going into a depressive state. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, but it's true, and I'm down for those movies, and I love watching those movies. Where like, all right, I have to put my phone away because I need to pay attention. I love those movies, but I'm also doing that with Alien. Like, I'm putting my phone away, but I'm also, it's an easier watch, and it's much more palatable because there's a lot of action going on, and then just like the overall like fear throughout the whole movie, just like building up to this like crazy ending and the escape hatch. So Alien was moving forward for me.
All right.
So we got 2 for Alien.
Yep. So Ray M had Saint Maud versus Alien, and he picked Saint Maud.
Oh wow, there you are, Ray.
Unfortunately, Carrie had Triangle versus Children of the Corn and picked
Children of
the Corn.
You gone.
Quinlan had Lake Mungo versus Alien, but did pick Alien. Tim had Saint Maud versus Alien and had Alien.
Yeah.
Sherry F had Saint Maud versus Alien and had Alien. Brian M had Triangle versus Alien and had Alien. And then Matt F had Saint Maud versus Children of the Corn and picked Saint Maud, which I probably would have too, Matt.
Yeah,
So.
between those two, I definitely would have went Saint Maud as well. So, all right, Alien is moving on against Sleepaway Camp.
Ooh, it's a tough one.
My bracket's intact now. It was broken a little bit with the Babadook being taken over by 30 Days a Night, but it's back together.
You're
again.
back in.
I'm
You're
back
back
in. All right, so now I can rely on my chart. All right, Shelly, so what do you got? Sleepaway Camp versus Alien.
What a hard matchup here.
Another movie where they're so contrastingly different.
However, I think... I mean, I've said all I can say about both these movies. Just put it out there, I picked Alien. I'm more entertained. I have more history with that movie. I'm going to watch that over Sleepaway Camp. Yeah. I love this series. I've actually watched the other Sleepaway Camps, at least the second one.
Nice.
Maybe the third one too. However, what Alien has done with the franchise, I have to give them some points for that. If I look between the Alien franchise and the Sleepaway Camp franchise, obviously Alien just gets better, where Sleepaway Camp just got kind of more. I mean, no one did what Sleepaway Camp did in the original film, but if I'm looking at overall story, acting, scare, even with their shock ending, it's not enough for them to beat Alien. So I gave it to Alien.
Yeah. With Sleepaway Camp, the ending was more shocking and maybe more of a punch, but the body of work in Alien itself, there's punches all throughout. Like it's a Goliath coming up against Sleepaway Camp.
Yeah.
So I guess I essentially just told my opinions on it. I think Alien, the writing on it, won again.
Yeah.
Scare, of course it won, and it edged it out, but it was a clean sweep. I'm watching Alien before I watch Sleepaway Camp. So that's 2 for Alien. What do we got with
all
the people?
Right. Matt F had Sleepaway Camp versus Saint Maud and picked Sleepaway Camp. Sorry, Matt.
All right.
Brian M had Sleepaway versus Alien, just like us, and he picked Alien.
Alien, all right. Alien pulling.
Sherry F had 30 Days versus Alien, but clearly picked Alien. Tim had The Witch versus Alien, and he picked The Witch.
Oh, wow. I love that you love that movie, Tim.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Quinlan had Sleepaway Camp versus Alien. And I thought Quinlan might pick Sleepaway Camp, but he did pick Alien.
He went Alien.
Carrie had 30 Days versus Children and picked 30 Days.
That's a great movie, Carrie.
And
Good choice.
Ray M had Dash Cam versus Saint Maud and picked Dash Cam.
Oh, yes. All right, so Alien's moving forward.
Alien is our left side winner.
Alien, you made it all the way to the final on the left-hand side.
We'll see if you have what it takes.
Yeah. So
I have a feeling this side of the bracket's going to be harder.
Ugh.
I'm going to have more things out.
Yeah.
I just know it.
Yeah. Okay,
Let's
so
get into it.
Let's get into it. The first battle on our right-hand side is Frozen versus The Stuff. Go ahead, Shelly.
So essentially, we did get kind of 2 horror comedies, I think, up against each other. If you want to look at Frozen as a horror comedy, the people who wrote it and directed it are kind of known for that.
Bo was a very goofy character, the main guy.
Yeah.
He was goofy. Yeah.
So The Stuff. Can't get enough of The Stuff.
They had a jingle.
They had a jingle.
How awesome was that? That jingle was great.
They had Marshmallow Fluff eating people.
Yeah.
Like, how can
Chocolate Chip Charlie doing kung fu.
Oh, my God.
There's a lot going on in this stuff.
Wow.
A lot.
I can't get enough.
I don't think
and
we can.
I can't get enough of this stuff.
I don't know.
And I can get enough of Frozen.
Frozen, yes.
I even think, like, as ridiculous as the stuff is, I'd have to give the writing to the stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know. The Frozen did kind of seem amateur as an amateur film. Sorry. I gave it to the stuff.
Yes.
So
Frozen. I mean, with Frozen, I think Adam Green squeezed as much as he could out of that concept.
Definitely better effects in Frozen.
Yes.
I'll
Oh
give him
yes. Oh yes. Some of the effects in the stuff are just fucking terrible. I can appreciate what they did with Frozen, but I think the concept itself was very limiting as far as like telling a story. I get that it hits for people as far as like a fear of heights and a fear of being stuck and abandoned somewhere. So I get that, but the writing, I went with the stuff, the jingles, all the stuff going on. I mean, Paul Sorvino as like a racist fucking colonel guy,
Yeah.
like there's a ton of shit going on, and it may not have been that cohesive, but it was a blast. So I went with the writing on that. Scarier, I did go Frozen, just because like that fear of being stuck and isolated, and I think that's a lot more terrifying than some weird marshmallow fluff. But ultimately, I landed with the stuff because I'm gonna rewatch it before I watch Frozen. So that's 2 for the stuff.
All right.
And then what did our fans
Ray
say?
has the stuff. Carrie had the stuff.
Oh, she recorded with us for
Yeah.
that. So that makes sense.
Quinlan had the stuff. Tim
Moving.
had the stuff. Sherry F had Frozen.
Hey, there we are.
Brian M had stuff. And Matt F had stuff.
Wow.
Wow.
Almost.
I can't believe a movie like this stuff is moving on. But
I know,
I'm
that's
excited about it.
That just it goes to show you the magic of the bracket, and that anybody could move on
Anyone.
as long as you're up against something maybe not as desirable.
Like Dashcam.
Yes. Unless you're Ray.
Oh, poor Ray.
We loved it. So moving on to the next battle on the right-hand side, we have The Haunting versus Behind the Mask, Leslie Vernon. This was a tough one.
I actually think I gave Leslie a higher rating than I gave The Haunting.
The Haunting?
However,
do you want to see?
Oh, we can look at it. I gave The Haunting 3.8, and
Okay.
I gave Behind the Mask 3.5. Never mind.
Okay.
Anyways, I was just curious. I thought I did give it more. However, when looking at The Haunting versus The Rise of Leslie Vernon, The Rise of Leslie Vernon is one of the better found footage movies that is out there. What a great, unique story with the classic horror people in the movie, basically bringing out, this new mass killer that's coming to the scene. It was kind of like Tucker and Dale meets found footage, if you ask me. But you then got The Haunting, made in the 50s, 60s?
63, I think.
What a scary movie for its time.
I know.
The little shifts, the things they did, the story, the acting, some great classic actors in that movie.
Yeah.
I was terrified of that movie as a child. My parents put it on me when we used to have a knob TV.
Yeah.
And I laid on the ground right in front of the TV watching this and just petrified.
Yeah, being stuck to the floor.
Yeah, scared. So because of all those things, I did give it to The Haunting.
The Haunting?
Yeah,
awesome.
I did.
Yeah. This one was a tough one for me as well. This was the first time I watched both of these films.
Yeah.
I think for what The Haunting did for its time was pretty groundbreaking. I remember falling in love with the cinematography.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of great camera work. And as far as like a haunted house movie, it also had like that psychological aspect because we were following, I forget the main character's name, but we were following her and she was going through like these, little dialogues in her head where
Psychotic episodes.
yeah, where we thought like, oh, maybe she's crazy and maybe it's just in her head. And these things that we see are through her. At the end, you see how it comes around, and that it's a pretty definitive. Like, no, this is what happened, which is great when you balance these two things and you're able to come to a conclusion and it's concise and it's a good ending. With Behind the Mask, this was the first time I've ever seen it. For the podcast, I bought the movie. I did not regret it at all after the first watch. I think what they were able to do with Behind the Mask is pretty amazing. The main character, just getting a behind the scene of this like crazy guy setting up this stuff is really genius. I loved the interviews between him and the reporter girl. I thought there was a lot of comedy in those moments, and I really, really enjoyed that. But for the writing, I ended up going with Behind the Mask. I think there was a lot of satire there, and for those of us who are horror fans, it hit a lot of nails for me that I love about horror films. So for writing, it went to Behind the Mask. Scarier, I went The Haunting. I think, Behind the Mask, it's not really scary when you're getting a behind the scenes to like this crazy slasher guy. So I got 2 for 2 right there. And then which one am I going to watch first? I ended up going Behind the Mask, Leslie Vernon.
We have one for each.
1 for 1. And then what did our beloved fans say?
Matt F has Behind the Mask. Brian has Behind the Mask. Sherry had Behind the Mask.
Ooh.
Tim had Behind the Mask.
Well, there we are.
Quinlan had Behind the Mask. Carrie had Behind the Mask, and Ray had Behind the Mask.
Behind the Mask is moving on, but I will say Steve F. submitted that movie to us.
The Haunting, not Behind the Mask.
Yeah, The Haunting. And it was a blast. Like I said, it was a first-time watch. So, Steve F., thanks for the submission, and hope to get another one from you next season. But Behind the Mask is moving on. All right, so next battle, we have Scream versus The Stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Stuff had its win, but now we have it up against Scream. Scream has one of our favorite newer masked killers. We have Ghostface Killer. And franchise that is amazing. Great acting, great story. It just had everything we wanted as kids in the early 2000s in a scary movie. We all remember seeing it in the theater and how much we enjoyed it and loved it, and it was so different. I don't think there's any comparison to The Stuff, so I did go with Scream.
Yeah, I've talked about my criteria, the writing, the scarier, the rather watch, and Scream was just a clean sweep on this one for me. The Stuff is a fun, goofy, some of the practical effects are really enjoyable. It's a worthwhile movie, but Scream rejuvenated slasher films. The 80s were just, they're beating a dead horse, whatever you want to say. And in the 90s, it feels like it kind of died off. But then when Scream came around and they came out with Ghostface and they came out with this meta-style slasher where not only were they, like, making fun of the tropes that are slasher films, but then they were, like, falling into those tropes. And Kevin Williamson, one of the greatest writers. And
he wrote Dawson's Creek.
One
of my favorites.
Yeah, so his attention to detail and the fact that the birth of this movie was in our backyard where in Gainesville, this was all came from the Gainesville murders. And Kevin Williamson took that real-life tragedy and was able to craft this amazing universe that we have now. And Scream is just, it's pulverizing the stuff. So the Scream is moving on for me. So we have 2 for Scream. I don't know how Scream is going to get anything from anyone. I mean, The Stuff is going to get anything from anyone else, but let's see.
Ray has Scream. Carrie has Scream.
Smart.
Quinlan has Scream. Tim has Scream. Sherry has Scream. Brian has Scream. And Matt has Scream.
Wow.
Scream clean sweeps it.
Clean sweep, Scream all the way. So Scream is moving on. And then next up, we have Paranormal Activity versus X.
Yeah.
All right, so Shelly, take it away with your thoughts.
All right, so X was a good movie. I really liked Pearl more than X when I went back and watched it.
Yeah.
But X was okay. It was a little too much sex for me to be impactful, but it had some good scares, some good writing, great acting.
Oh, yeah. Great cast.
Overall, solid movie. I think they were a great franchise. Ty West, right?
Ty West.
Good little trilogy for him to put out there. But then we have Paranormal Activity. When it came out, it was just as sensational as the Blair Witch Project, and that we didn't know if it was real or not. They kind of touted it as this is real, true story. This actually all happened. And granted, as the franchise went on, we knew that wasn't true. But however, terrifying. These are the type of movies that make me scared to go home at night. I'm going to sleep with a light on, because that ideally is something that could happen. I'm not worried about Freddy coming into my dreams.
Yes.
I mean, he could, but he's not going to actually kill me, right?
Yeah.
Or like a guy with a hockey mask, which could still happen. The world's scary. But to that point, though, Paranormal Activity, with the story of this couple that weird shit happens, and just I thought the effects were great. The story was great. It terrified. The second one and the third one are even more terrifying than the first one to me. So I gave it to Paranormal Activity.
Nice. So we have 1 for Paranormal Activity. For me, the writing went to X. I loved the story of Pearl and how she was dealing with old age and these young kids coming in to film this porno, and how it like triggered her go crazy and start taking him out. I thought was really cool. With Paranormal Activity, it's a pretty straightforward story. So for writing, I just went with X. Scarier though, Paranormal Activity all day. I made possibly the bad choice of having Ian watch Paranormal Activity with me. And, you know, we talked about it on the episode, but it was like a couple weeks later, he had his first night terror. And maybe a bad move on my part, but Paranormal Activity, the first time I watched was when Netflix came out and they first started streaming. I sat on my laptop and I watched it with headphones in. And the sound design on Paranormal Activity is top notch. Little growls in the background, footsteps you hear at night. Like, what a terrifying movie. So, X lost on that to Paranormal Activity. But as far as which one I'm going to watch next, it's going to be X all day. So
my whole right side of the bracket is fucked.
It's fucked.
I'm just going to say that.
Okay. All right. So what did the fans say?
Matt has X. Brian has X. Sherry F had Paranormal Activity. Tim had X. Quinlan had Paranormal Activity.
Oh.
Carrie had Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
And Ray had Paranormal Activity.
Boom. Paranormal Activity. Moving on. Look at that. P.A. My bracket's broke.
Now yours is, huh?
Now we're both broken. All right. So, see, exactly. That's why we need you guys involved in this, because you are moving the needle. Ready?
Truly. Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. So, next up is Event Horizon versus Behind the Mask.
So just so everybody knows, I originally had Event Horizon versus The Haunting. I had The Haunting moving on. So now I have Event Horizon versus Behind the Mask. And I'm going to have Event Horizon moving on instead. Because Event Horizon was a fun ride. Great story, great acting. The effects were here and there. They were hit or miss. The eyes were a little cheesy looking. But, I mean, we have great sights to show you. Like some classic lines.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just Event Horizon all day. It's one of the first horror movies I saw in the theaters, so it's going to get the win for me.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, Event Horizon, as far as the writing between the two, I ended up going with Event Horizon. I forget what the vessel was called, but
it's on the tip of my tongue.
I loved how it used certain crew members' past traumas as a way to, like, dig its teeth into them and pull them into this trap of, like, the dimension to hell or whatever you want to think it was pulling people to. So I love that writing. I talked about the satire of Behind the Mask, which I loved, and it made it win the last round.
The ship was called the Event Horizon.
Oh, it's in the title. But as far as which writing is better, in my opinion, is Event Horizon's writing. And then scarier, obviously, Event Horizon, much scarier. This was actually another clean sweep for me. Event Horizon's moving on.
Yay.
So,
see what happens.
Do our fans say?
All right. We have Event Horizon versus Behind the Mask, and we had Event Horizon.
From Ray M?
Yeah, Ray,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
Carrie had Event Horizon versus Behind the Mask and picked Behind the Mask. Quinlan had Event versus Behind the Mask and picked Event Horizon. Tim had the same matchup and picked Event Horizon. Sherry had Event Horizon versus Behind the Mask and picked Event Horizon. Brian had the same matchup but picked Behind the Mask. And Matt F. had Event Horizon versus Behind the Mask and picked Behind the Mask.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Unfortunately for those who voted Behind the Mask, Event Horizon is moving on. And thank you to Brian M. for submitting Behind the Mask and recording that episode with us. That was a total blast. And I, too, am hoping to see you submit a movie again for next year.
Yep, absolutely.
All right, so Event Horizon, moving on. All right, at the bottom on the right-hand side, we are going to Street Trash against Dead Snow.
Dead Snow.
Yeah, Dead Snow was a clean sweep for me.
Do we even have to discuss this?
Yeah, I've said it 1,000 times. I loved about 15 minutes of Street Trash, but the rest of it pissed me off, and so fucking Dead Snow all day.
That's a lot more
over
minutes
Street
than I
Trash.
even gave it respect for.
Yeah, so 2 Dead Snows.
And then we'll have to have Erica on this next season to
We
redeem
do.
the movie.
We do. We need that to happen.
All right,
What do we
so
got?
Matt had Dead Snow. Brian had Dead Snow. Sherry had Dead Snow. Tim had Dead Snow. Quinlan had Dead Snow. Carrie had Dead Snow. And Ray had Dead Snow.
Ray, good job. Everyone did a good job on that one.
Clean sweep.
All right, so going back up to the top, we have Scream versus Paranormal Activity. dun, dun, dun.
I kind of figured this would be a losing battle for me, but I picked it anyways.
Yeah.
I went with Paranormal Activity just because I do love Scream, don't get me wrong, and I think it is one of our better slasher films of this modern century time, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But Paranormal Activity just scares the shit out of me, whereas Scream didn't as much. I had nightmares about Paranormal Activity. I had to sleep with a light on. Scream didn't do it for me, and I think for scareability alone, and I don't hate the franchise. I recently went through and watched all the Paranormal Activities, and I just picked Paranormal Activities. I like that one better.
Yeah.
So that's what I went with. I
I
think I'm in a losing battle, but
well, it resonates with you, and that's what this is all about, is how it speaks to you. For myself, writing, obviously, Kevin Williamson, it's gonna go to Scream. Scarier still, like, Paranormal Activity is a terrifying movie. It's subtle in its scares, but the subtleness, it builds up to that crazy ending with Micah, though it should be Micah. So Scarier all day is Paranormal Activity, and I'm sorry, of most films, Scream is it's a high rewatch for me, so Scream is moving on. So we have one for Paranormal Activity and one for Scream.
all right. So Ray M had Scream versus Scream versus Paranormal Activity.
Okay.
And picked Paranormal Activity.
Paranormal Activity.
Carrie had Scream versus Paranormal Activity and picked Scream. Quinlan had Scream versus Paranormal Activity and picked Paranormal Activity. Oh. Tim had Scream versus X and picked Scream. Sherry had Scream versus Paranormal Activity and picked Scream. Brian had Scream versus X and picked Scream. And Matt had Scream versus X and picked Scream. But I wonder if people had Scream versus Paranormal Activity, if they had... That's what makes me wonder sometimes. Different matches.
Yeah.
But I guess Scream took it.
Yeah. Scream moves on. All right. Going to the bottom of the right-hand side, we have Event Horizon versus Dead Snow. What do you got, Shelly?
Okay. Event Horizon versus Dead Snow, right?
Yep.
I picked Event Horizon.
Mm-hmm.
Just the better of the two films. Dead Snow had its shortcomings. It lacked a lot. And so did Event Horizon. However, I'm going to pick up Event Horizon first before I pick up Dead Snow.
Yeah. I think if I was in a mood for just some light watch where I just get a bunch of blood splattering, I'd probably go Dead Snow. But when you're looking at writing, I mean, Event Horizon was a whole universe, and Dead Snow was just a bunch of dumb kids that went up to a cabin.
I just don't know if I'd ever rewatch Dead Snow either.
Yeah. Writing is definitely going to Event Horizon. Scarier, also Event Horizon. The idea of Nazi zombies or Nazi whatever is terrifying, but it's obviously a lot more goofy than the Event Horizon, taking people's eyes. So scarier, writing, definitely go to Event Horizon, and I would definitely watch Event Horizon first. So Event Horizon is moving forward for me as well.
All right. Matt had Behind the Mask versus Dead Snow, so that's...
Ooh, yeah.
So did Brian. Sherry F had Event Horizon versus Dead Snow, but did pick Event Horizon. Tim had Event Horizon, Dead Snow, and picked Event Horizon. Quinlan picked Event Horizon in the same matchup. Carrie W had Behind the Mask versus Dead Snow and picked Behind the Mask.
Aw.
Ray M had Event Horizon versus Dead Snow and picked Event Horizon.
All right. So Event Horizon, pretty strong case in moving forward. So our final two films on the right-hand side is Scream and Event Horizon. Shelly.
Well, originally I had Paranormal Activity versus The Haunting. It had Paranormal Activity taking it. So when looking at those two films, again, very different. We have one more modern, better effects. Event Horizon, like I said, one of the first movies I saw in a theater as far as scary goes. But when I look at watchability, a fun ride, great acting, great effects, rewatchability, I'm going to go with Scream.
Okay. So Scream is moving forward for you. Yeah, so writing, obviously, I've been talking about Kevin Williamson, but yeah, the characters, great. Scarier, I'm going Event Horizon, terrifying film. But yeah, rewatch, which one? It's going to be Scream. So I'm going Scream as well for my winner between those two. So what do we have from the fans?
All right. Ray had Paranormal Activity versus Event Horizon and picked Event Horizon.
Oh.
Carrie had Scream versus Behind the Mask and picked Scream. Quinlan had Paranormal Activity versus Event Horizon and picked Paranormal Activity.
That's is his bracket essentially the same as yours?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Because we're smart.
No one else is.
Tim had Scream versus Event Horizon and picked Scream. Sherry had Scream versus Event Horizon and picked Scream. Brian had Scream versus Behind the Mask but did pick Scream.
Oh, okay.
And Matt had Scream versus Dead Snow and picked Scream.
And there we are with Scream. Moving on to the finals against... This one was tough for me. This was my final on my bracket, but Alien...
Mine was Alien Paranormal Activity.
Yeah.
And I did not... I picked Paranormal Activity.
Okay, so this is completely... Yeah. All right, so Alien versus Scream for our final. What do you have?
Yeah, even though I didn't originally have Alien versus Scream in the matchup, I'm going to pick with one that I originally went with, right?
Yeah.
So, like, even I think they're very comparable films with as far as everything goes, if we want to apples to apples. But originally, I had Alien further going than Scream even went. So why would I keep Scream? So I'm gonna in the switch up for me. I am going to pick Alien.
Awesome. So Alien, great choice. Writing, Scream, scarier, Alien. So then it comes down to which one am I going to rewatch. It's definitely Scream all day for me. I own this movie. I've had it for years. Carrie actually is the reason that I became such a big fan of this, because I watched Scream back in the day, and it didn't really hit. And then, in my adult life, I've become a much bigger fan of horror films. And when I rewatch Scream, I catch all the fun little Easter eggs and the fun little callbacks to different films. So for me, Scream is the winner. So we have one for Alien and one for Scream between Shelly and I. So what are the listeners saying?
Sherry had Alien and had the same final matchup.
Oh, cool.
Tim had Scream versus The Witch in his final matchup and picked Scream. Carrie had Scream versus 30 Days a Night and picked Scream. Ray had Dash Cam versus Event Horizon and picked Dash Cam, so he gets no vote. Brian did have Alien versus Scream as his final matchup and picked Scream. And Matt had Sleepaway Camp versus Scream and picked Scream.
So, drum roll, looks like Scream is the winner of the 2024 season of Little Bracket of Horrors. So, we did it. We got through it. Thank you to all of our submissions. What's up?
The more I look at the word Scream, it's really weird.
Oh, yeah. It's like one of those words like vacuum. You ever look at vacuum?
Or column?
Yes. There's a lot of words out there. You're like, that is the word, but you don't look right. You don't look
Especially
right.
Typed like that. I'm like, that's not how you spell it. Sorry. Yay, Scream.
Yay. So Scream is the winner for the 2024 season. And yeah, so
2025 season.
Well, yeah. We've bled in a little bit to this season, but we are going to be taking a little break. Obviously, we're going to recharge the batteries. And we'll be back sometime. We'll figure out when. Just pay attention to our socials because we want you guys to submit movies for next year. We want you guys to join us on episodes if you can. So be paying attention to our socials. We'll be throwing it out there, and you guys can give us some fan suggestions for next year. So before I do the call out, you want to say anything?
No, just thank you to everybody for participating and playing along. It's because we're just a 2-person podcast. It's nice to have a third voice, essentially, in our fans. So thank you so much, as always, and we hope to see you next season.
Absolutely. So, guys, you can find us on Facebook and TikTok by searching Little Bracket of Horrors, and on Instagram by typing at Little Bracket of Horrors. If you listen on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please give us a rating and review if you like what we do. We also have merch available at tpublic.com. Just search for our name in their website search bar or pay attention to our socials for a direct link. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm Derek.
I'm Shelly.
And we will catch you on the other side.